From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
A frightening scene unfolds in rural America.
As soon as I saw the president go down, the first thing that flashed in my mind was the JFK assassination.
As shots ring out near the grounds of a farm show in Pennsylvania, an attempted assassination of a former president.
We heard the shots. You never expect something like this to happen.
Reaction from the ag community that had a front row seat to witnessing a frightening chapter in American history. Right now on AgDay.
AgDay is brought to you by Pioneer. Pioneer brand corn is part of a winning team that includes deep local knowledge and on-farm support. Pioneer brand corn, your best years starts here.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. We continue to follow a developing story. An assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump near the grounds of a farm show in rural western Pennsylvania. We begin with the latest on the investigation from reporter Lee Waldman.
Just hours before shots were fired at a campaign rally in Butler, Pennsylvania, we are now learning the 20-year-old gunman purchased 50 rounds of ammunition at a local gun store, according to a senior law enforcement official. The AR-style weapon used by Thomas Matthew Crooks now being traced back to his father. While the FBI is working to determine a motive behind the attack that left one man dead and 2 others critically wounded, former classmates of Crooks describe him as quiet.
He was just very, very bland. Didn't show no facial expressions. Just very to himself.
A search of the shooter's vehicle revealed possible explosives in the trunk. Witnesses to the shooting say they saw Crooks before shots were fired.
He's on top of the roof.
And tried to alert law enforcement.
My wife ran up to law enforcement, was trying to tell them, where he was, but they couldn't seem to see him because they weren't in the right spot to see him on the roof.
We are also learning Secret Service did not sweep the building where the gunman was perched. A source familiar with the investigation saying a local counter sniper team was responsible for the building. However, the Pennsylvania State Police deny that responsibility.
When I say that something like this cannot happen, we are speaking of a failure.
This morning, U.S. Secret Service Director Kimberly Cheadle released her first statement since the shooting, confirming they will cooperate with an independent review of the incident. I'm Lee Waldman reporting for AgDay.
And joining us now is Lissa Rei. She's from Pennsylvania. And Lissa, you were there at the rally. Tell us about your experience. What did you see? What did you hear?
My family that has a dairy farm that was 2 miles from the Butler Farm Show location. They were asked to provide the equipment to kind of flank the stage for the president. We ended up being the second row directly in front of the podium. The crowd was as excited as I've ever seen. The energy was high, the music's playing, everyone's kind of on edge waiting, when's he going to get here? Yeah, then he came out. He had actually turned to look at the screen is when the gunshots started going off and everything kind of escalated from there.
Obviously he went down, Secret Service piled on top of him.
Yes.
What did you and your family do?
We heard the shots and my family, I know in specific, we just kind of stood there staring like what's happening. You never expect something like this to happen, and especially not with you being front row encountering it. But, we instantly kind of crouched down. I wouldn't say we ever even fully hit the ground. And as soon as Trump had stood up and, put that little fist bump up there, everyone was shouting and cheering. And it was the craziest thing you could ever encounter. You never expect to be at something like that. It's stuff you read in your history books, but you never expect to witness it in your lifetime. It was incredible seeing the Amish community there. My brother, he has large bins and he does 2,000 acres of, corn and soybeans, and they do some wheat and stuff like that. So it is a large ag community, and just the event grounds, the Butler Farm Show grounds. I grew up exhibiting dairy cattle in 4-H there. It's just a large agricultural community that just happened to be at the right place at the wrong time.
And you can hear more of my interview with Larissa over on agweb.com. Someone else in attendance at the rally in Pennsylvania, Kip Tom. He served as the ambassador to the United Nations Agency for Food and Agriculture under the Trump administration. Now, he is also the CEO of Tom Farms in Indiana. He shared this video on X of the moments just after the shooting. He says he was about 15 feet away from the firefighter who lost his life at the rally. Tom spoke with AgriTalk's Chip Flory, who said he had a front row seat to what happened in Butler, Pennsylvania.
As soon as I saw or heard the bullet, the gunfire, as soon as I saw the president go down, the first thing that flashed in my mind was the JFK assassination, and just what all transpired after that, and how our nation actually changed course when we went under Lyndon B. Johnson, and just how the administration at that time dealt with the plenty of issues that our country was facing at that time. So this could have been big event, changing the pathway for our nation moving forward in the future. But fortunately for the president, he's okay.
Now, Tom saying he feels there was probably a failure at the very top of the Secret Service at that event. Now, Tom is now in Milwaukee for the Republican National Convention, serving as a delegate for Indiana. Other ag officials commenting, including Ag Secretary Tom Vilsack, saying on X, formerly known as Twitter, quote, that he was praying for all the victims of Saturday's attack, adding, quote, such acts ought not to happen at a political rally or any place else in our country, end quote. And the American Farm Bureau also releasing a statement. President Zippy Duvall condemning the violence, saying political differences must be resolved through dialogue and debate, ultimately decided at the ballot box, not through violence, saying, quote, such acts of hatred threaten our democracy and the rule of law, end quote. We will continue to follow this story and keep you posted on air and online at agweb.com. Cooler temps are on the way for much of the Corn Belt this week, along with some rain. Meteorologist Matt Engelbrecht joins us with a look ahead.
Temperatures next couple of days, a pocket of cooler air coming through. When you think about how long temperatures have been above average in your location, it has been a while since we've seen a decent pocket of cool air move across the United States. So the other thing this is going to do, it is going to hamper large severe weather systems as well, with not as much energy in the atmosphere from the extreme heat. Again, 2/3 of the United States, you got the blue. Otherwise, into Florida, little circle, New York City, and then back here where that heat continues to stick around. That includes Idaho, parts of the Northwest, Pacific Northwest, and Montana, as well as down into California, where we're still looking at some extreme heat through the 20th and the 24th. But again, some cooling off going on. We'll have to keep an eye out in terms of where the coolest of the cool is and the warmest of the warm. That's where we may start to see some more thunderstorms try and develop. And a great picture from the great state of Nebraska. A Hickson Photography sharing this one at Corn Tassel in Gage County, Nebraska. A terrific up-close look. I'll have more in your forecast coming up.
USDA APHIS is reporting dairy herds in 13 states are now being impacted by avian flu. The latest, Oklahoma, reporting 2 infected herds, bringing the total to 157 herds impacted by H5N1. Meanwhile, avian flu is now confirmed in 5 people working at a poultry farm in northeastern Colorado. Health officials believe the workers caught the virus through direct contact with infected birds. It's reported they had mild symptoms such as pink eye and respiratory issues, but none were hospitalized. Health officials continue to say poultry and dairy products are still safe to eat, and the risk to the general public of getting avian flu remains low. So what happened to soybeans on Monday? We'll dig into the market that sunk even lower to start the week next. And later, the ongoing battle against fire ants, the trouble they can cause for agriculture in the country. Grains were back in the red to start the week, with wheat moving to a new contract low. AgDay's Michelle Rook lets us know if there's any hopeful signs ahead in markets now.
A tough down day in the grains on Monday. Brian Doherty with Total Farm Marketing is back with analysis. Brian, let's start off with soybeans. New lows for the move, new contract lows, I think, down 25 to 28 cents. So you say we have kind of the perfect storm there in that market, huh?
Well, in row crops in general. So you've got heavy fund selling in recent weeks, and the Commodity Traders report on Friday showed that they were continuing to do that through last Tuesday. And then, of course, you had reports out on Friday that weren't friendly for wheat or beans necessarily, favorable for corn. But that was still the recipient yesterday of heavy, I think, fund selling. But you just don't have anything to bite your teeth into if you're bullish. The short sellers are rewarded by selling more. The end user is rewarded by being complacent or buying only as needed. And then ultimately, you got a technical chart that looks lousy as well. So those who are short can find it easy to continue to add. But probably the biggest thing, Michelle, is just what do we have in a weather situation here as we look at the most probably critical 2 to 3 weeks ahead of the growing season.
And with no threatening weather, the corn market's going to continue probably to see pressure if soybeans are going down. So is $4 going to hold on December corn, I think, is the big question, Brian.
If you look at just the where the market is relative to all other things, we're at our lowest price in 4 years, and you're looking at really good value. All of those things say, yes, the market should hold. What says no is that farmers are still holding a large amount of old crop corn. The market knows that. And the market has to try and figure out what's going to happen to farmers there. Are they going to just dump it eventually? Or are they going to continue to trickle it out? Or are they just going to store it into the new crop and then see what harvest brings? But no matter how you look at it, you've kind of got a supply, let's call it slug.
We put another 100 million bushels on the balance sheets for wheat with the Friday WASDE. And so some new contract lows in Chicago there again as well, right?
Right. So the trade-off, farmers get good yields or better than expected yields. It shows up in a balance sheet and takes it out of price, unfortunately. And there again, same type of marketplace where you just don't have any urgency. Despite the dollar losing ground the last couple of weeks, there's just no urgency on the side of the end user.
Thanks so much, Brian Doherty with Total Farm Marketing. We'll have more AgDay coming up.
So I looked at the temperature outlook earlier between the 20th and the 24th a bit ago. Now we're doing the 22nd through the 28th. So it kind of shows you how things are going to evolve back to a warmer pattern across the United States. Our blue gets a little bit smaller and the red and orange get a little bigger. So this is through the 28th, including parts of Wisconsin, Michigan, back off to the East Coast as well. We're expecting, again, some of those warmer temperatures to reemerge back into Pennsylvania, New York State, and the Northeast. And unfortunately, as we get deeper into July and August, we'll start to see that heat build back in. So what's going on with the jet stream? Again, a pocket of cooler air. You can kind of see it here. This is jet stream on Wednesday. The shallow trough is going to be working through with a cold front attached to it. And you see how this white line digs all the way down here to the south. That's a sign of some cooler air coming through as well. This is a sign of very hot air staying over the Four Corners state and spreading back here to the west, but also to the north. That's why we keep those above average high temperatures into the northwest as well. So again, Saturday and into Sunday doesn't look like much, but this is the pattern that is going to keep things a little bit cooler than average for a portion of the United States, but then it'll eventually start to retreat back up to the north, and with the ridge of high pressure once again kind of reinforcing the warmer air all across the United States. There's next Monday with that ridge building in and keeping things quiet not only at the surface but warm as well. Precipitation forecast next to 24 hours across the United States. You got the ring of fire that's going to be flaring up, which is why we have showers, thunderstorms right along where that ridge was located, with the possibility of some heavier downpours. 2 to 3 inches of rainfall not out of the question with some of those thunderstorms. And then as you go out the next 7 days, once again, kind of a bullseye through North and South Carolina with more moisture bringing in some of the 3+ inches of rain. Louisville, Kentucky, mostly cloudy, high around 93 degrees, low of 74. Amherst, Ohio, got some thunderstorms, high about 84 degrees, low of 70. What about South Carolina? Anderson, partly cloudy, high around 96.
Well, if you're a grain farmer, you're probably not happy with prices right now. But in some ways, the bad news is bringing good news to dairy producers. An update next. A bit of good news when it comes to dairy prices. They've been higher lately. The June Class 3 milk price of $19.87 was the highest since December of 2022. The same is true for Class 4 milk with a June price of $21.08. And the income over feed prices continues to improve, with the May price now at $10.52. And while it's not good news for grain growers, dairy market watcher Robin Schmall says lower grain prices could improve income over feed significantly over the next few months. Now, he reports another positive development in the market is the strong export of cheese, with cheese reaching the highest ever exports during March, April, and May. And an update on a story we've been following involving a once controversial dairy farm in Oregon. DairyHerd.com reporting on the next chapter involving a former confined animal feeding operation near Boardman, Oregon. Back in 2017, it was called Lost Valley Farm and was given permission to house 30,000 dairy cattle. But it was reported the owner was housing cows before the necessary facilities were completed and without finalizing a waste management plan. Now, that farm eventually filed for bankruptcy. After that, it changed ownership several times, including when Easter Day Dairy took over. But the farm ultimately closed and the site was left without any cattle. Now, last year, Canyon Farms, which is managed by a venture capital firm, purchased the property. It has now submitted an application to decommission the site as a CAFO. To read more about the future of the property, head over to dairyherd.com. Coming up, fighting back against fire ants. See the damage they can do to agriculture next in the country. Almost every county in Tennessee, 87 of 95 to be exact, is part of the Department of Agriculture's fire ant quarantine program. Now, experts with the University of Tennessee's Institute of Agriculture say they're seeing fire ants on farms and in urban areas, and as Charles Denny reports, they can cause problems for animals on the farm and humans.
When they sting, it can burn like fire, and that's where you get the name. For many who have an unplanned meeting with fire ants, it's literally a painful memory.
I got introduced to fire ants when I had to get off of a tractor and work on a piece of equipment. I had to lay down, and all of a sudden, it's like my arm caught on fire.
Kevin Thompson also deals with fire ant mounds as part of his job at the UT Ag Research Center in Spring Hill. But it's not just the concern of being re-stung. Fire ants can cause damage in agriculture.
It can harm equipment because you can imagine a pile of soil piled up, which they do in their nesting areas, can dull mower blades and things of that nature. It can impact livestock as well. You know, if we have a brand new baby calf that's born and lays down in a nest of fire ants, they can cause some significant stress.
Moving to West Tennessee, pesticide UT Extension Specialist Kim Brown treats mounds at the Ag Research Center in Jackson. Brown says her best advice to combat these insects is to use a fire ant bait.
Big thing is you want to make sure it's warm enough and the ants are actually out foraging. They'll pick it up and take it back to their mounds. Fire ant baits are they have growth regulators in them, and so they actually kill the brood. So they'll feed it to the queen, feed it to the brood, and it'll kill the mounds.
Don't think this is just a problem on farms or in rural areas. Fire ants are also in densely populated neighborhoods and urban areas of the state too. And that's where you're more likely to have a human or pet fire ant encounter. UTIA entomologist Karen Vale found this mound right on the ag campus in Knoxville outside her door. This UT fire ant colony first built a mound up against this sidewalk, but after it was treated, it just migrated about 15 feet away. Vale says fire ants are able to respond to changes in their environment.
Yeah, often people will apply an individual mound treatment and it kills a portion of the colony but not all of it. And the colony moves in response to that disturbance. And you think you've been successful in controlling that mound because when you poke and prod it, you don't see any activity, but lo and behold, 10, 20 feet away is the remains of that mound.
All our experts agree we need to be proactive in dealing with fire ants. Unchecked, colonies will spread. Careful control and a cautious existence are needed to prevent further issues, damage, or pain. This is Charles Denny reporting.
All right, thanks, Charles. Now, here's a tip. The method for determining if fire ants are foraging is to leave a potato chip or hot dog near a mound. If the food attracts ants within 30 minutes, it's an ideal time to apply a bait. And that's all the time we have this morning. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day out in Farm Country.